acupuncture, a lot of people don't realize this, can shift perspective. Now, in the acupuncturist circle, we call it acu-high. It is essentially a high of endorphins, serotonin.
Yeah.
I think the largest myth I would like to bust is that acupuncture is not supported by scientific evidence-based data. Acupuncture can really help strengthen boundaries where it's like, no, that's yours. I got
Yeah.
mine. And I'm not going to allow all this other stuff to filter in.
This honest conversation is caffeinated by Integrity Coffee, a Michigan roaster making your mornings a little easier and a lot better. You can shop once or subscribe monthly so your coffee shows up before your personality disappears. Order at integritycoffee22.com and use the code HONEST20, HONEST 20 for 20% off. Real talk, raw feelings. Welcome to Attunigrate's podcast series. If I'm being honest, I'm your host, Nishani Javardhana. I'm the founder of Attunigrate. I'm Himgori Alvi, Gigi to my friends, creative mind and founder behind Tessellations. Today, we're joined by a very special guest, somebody that I have been actually professionally and personally working with for, I was trying to go back in my calendar to figure out how long it's been since I've been seeing this special guest. And it's over 3 years, 2.5 years specifically, that I've been working with this person. So allow me to introduce you guys to Kat Barber. Kat Barber is a nationally board certified acupuncturist, and she's licensed here in Michigan with over 16 years of experience. So one of the things that really stuck out for me was when I learned about how her journey started, because she first began working with HIV as a HIV case manager in Chicago, if that's correct, right? And she
Yes.
witnessed firsthand how acupuncture was transforming not just physical health, but emotional well-being. I think after that, it sounded like it kind of led her through this path for deeply integrative healing, which is basically what I talk about all day, every day, which kind of worked out really well. And she now works with women's health, fertility, mental health, pain management, and so much more. And I even was seeing signs at her office about facial acupuncture, which I want to get into during our episode because I've been curious about it, but I've never actually, well, technically Kat has used needles on my face and my forehead and my scalp, but that I think there's a difference with what she's talking about with facial acupuncture, which we will get into. Another thing I wanted to mention is Kat is also trained in 5-element Chinese medicine, which focuses on things like PTSD, anxiety, sleep issues, and basically connect just observing and learning about how everything in the body is connected. And after I was hooked, so the first time I tried acupuncture was when I was very, very young. With my mom, we would go to community acupuncture places. And when I was doing it then, I didn't really understand the true nature and the benefits of it because they were saying it's good for your acne, it's good for hormonal changes. And I couldn't feel anything, but I was also a teenager. So why on earth would I think that any of that was working for me at the time? And then my grandmother was a religious practitioner of acupuncture. She would go religiously every month to see the acupuncturist, especially after she first discovered that it had this very subtle shift. It wasn't overnight. Acupuncture is not something where you take a pill and overnight you kind of like, everything feels different. It is it requires discipline and it requires consistency. And once my grandmother was hooked, she never let it go. And I remembered that my grandmother used to do this. So I started looking up on Google and I was like, I need an acupuncturist. And I found 2 different people, Kat being one of them and another place that offers community acupuncture. And I said, you know what? I'm just going to go. I'm just going to go give it a shot, even though I was slightly nervous about needles. I've heard some stories with people with needles, but I had tried it before as a kid. So I'm like, let me just go do, right? So I decided I was going to I bought Kat's introductory package, which offers about basically 3 total acupuncture sessions back to back if you wanted to use them. We know within a 60 to 90 day period, I think. So I went and purchased that. So after the 3rd session, fast forward to the 3rd session, which we will get into all of the things that she does, I had this profound relaxing state effect. Like I remember driving back home after an acupuncture appointment with Kat, and it was about an hour, and sometimes she even lets me stay longer than an hour, which by the way, I was there in our office yesterday for about an hour and a half, and my partner had to wait an extra 20 minutes because I was relaxing on a bed right next door, which was excellent. I was driving back home and nothing phased me. I was like, there was traffic, there were the same idiots on the road that would previously, get me to at least say some words out loud in the car. I was doing none of that. And I remember coming home and I was so calm and relaxed that my partner thought something was wrong. He thought I was upset. And then he was like poking and prodding. And he was like, Nishani, are you okay? You're not as animated as you usually are. Something must be wrong. Did I do something? Are we okay? And he started panicking. And I was like, I think this is the most zen I have ever felt in my life. And I didn't even know it was possible. And ever since then, I have been a religious follower, just like my grandmother. I go to see Kat at least once a month, if not every 2 months. And I always appreciate the fact that she adds not just acupuncture, but she also engages in, she provides cupping and scraping. Like yesterday, my shoulders, like there's a lot of cupping marks in my shoulders and my back because I do need that extra support. And she takes the extra time to really navigate those issues that I'm surfacing. And the nervous system regulation was a complete sidetrack. And I know I have also introduced Gigi to Kat, so I'm going to let Gigi share. But first, I think I've dragged this introduction for a little longer than I had planned, but I wanted to make sure I get this in because this was probably one of the most, I'm really excited to have this conversation and educate our listeners about the benefits of acupuncture. Whether you're a first timer or whether you already know what the benefits of acupuncture can be, there are so many positive side effects from acupuncture. Whether you're going for one thing and the next thing you know, there are other things that are being solved through acupuncture. And as I've said before, it's a very consistent, it requires patience, and it is not going to be an overnight change. But if you can stay committed to the cause, I guarantee you will see the results. So I'm a huge advocate. I tell everybody about it. If they can get over the needles part, I'm like, you will not regret this decision. So anyways, without further ado, Kat Barber, thank you so much for being a part of this
Oh my
podcast.
goodness. What an introduction. Thank you so much, Nishani. I'm speechless. Thank you for having me here.
That's
So
how
happy to
we
be here.
feel once we are done with our session. That's how we are. We are in Zen mode. Like whatever Nishani said, there was a nod because I'm like, I agree with everything. And
Yeah.
yeah,
I
like,
mean, we call it, in the acupuncturist circle, we call it acu-high. It is essentially a high of endorphins,
yeah,
serotonin. It's acupuncture treatments are working with the central nervous system. So it's communicating with your brain, and your brain releases chemical messengers, and you have that really profound, deep sense of relaxation. And the
right.
one thing that acupuncture does for everyone is that it decreases stress and inflammation, and it turns your nervous system, or kind of modulates it, whether you want to or not. It's going to happen on the table. And that's
Yeah.
I think that's like such a beautiful thing. I mean, all my patients, including two of you, have reported back to me that, you get off the table and you're like, wow, I feel calm, focused, grounded, and relaxed. And like, who doesn't want to be all of those?
Yeah.
you know
It's a small story. Like I visited Cat last week, I'm going to say, and I was really having a rough week. And I'm like, I don't know why, but I just need to go for a session. I came back after a session. It was on a Tuesday. By Thursday, my thought process, my nervous system, everything changed. Like, I think people around me found a bigger change because I was literally in the zone of like, I don't think I want to pursue or like want to do what I'm doing currently, right? Like having a business. I literally had gone to the extreme ends of everything. And when I was on the table there, I was like, you know what? These 2 hours are just mine. I come back after the session and I'm like, you know what? I'm feeling okay right now. I gave it 2, 3 more days and I could gradually see a difference in myself. Yeah, okay, like it was a rough patch, but you can put a hard stop to what you're going through. Give your nervous system the break that it requires, because when it is super, like, high on everything, like, you cannot think for yourself right as well. And this is literally my experience last week.
Hmm.
Exactly this time last week, I'm like, oh, Thursday morning, my voice note to Nishani was like, hey, I'm feeling much better today. I think I'm going to navigate my life in a better way. Before that, my voice notes were like, I don't know what I'm doing. I don't know what I'm going to be doing. It's really difficult for me right now. Like, everything was overwhelming. Let it be home, let it be work. Like, everything had just like gotten high. But yeah, like, having said all of these things, I want to ask you one question. What is the one myth that you want to break about acupuncture?
That's a great question, Gigi. I think the largest myth I would like to bust is that acupuncture is not supported by scientific evidence-based data. There's so much information. I think a lot of people still think that acupuncture is kind of like this voodoo, this kind of, it doesn't have any basis, foundation, that it's just quackery. And I still see that even in, 2026, although it's come a long way. And, especially in the United States, there's a lot more reception and openness towards that. And it's starting to, I can't say merge with Western medicine, but Western medicine is more open to Eastern medicine, acupuncture and Chinese medicine. So I would love to be able to bust that because
Hmm.
there's so much science behind it. There wasn't a lot of data behind it up until recently. And I say recently, probably in the last 15 to 20 years, but there's so many different studies that have been done by great higher learning institutions all over the world, all over this country, that are irrefutable about how acupuncture works. And it's not that we're just randomly sticking needles, throughout the body. There is a method to the madness and there's a science to the madness. And it's exactly working with the central nervous system, which in turn
Hmm.
is working with your autonomic nervous system. And that means it's working with the brain. And there's some
Hmm.
really great studies, I believe, either out of Stanford or UCLA, where they were doing imaging. So they were mapping individuals with certain condition and these individuals were receiving acupuncture while they were getting either, it must have been an MRI. And you could see in the MRI these centers of the brain that were responding because of the acupuncture. So let's say, I think one of the studies was for migraines. And the individual who was receiving acupuncture for migraines and having a concurrent MRI, specifically that brain center was releasing. They could see that it was releasing chemical messengers, that it was responding to the treatment. So it's really, that to me is really exciting. It's like that shows that there is a pathway, that this is not just a random, you know, therapy, that if it performed by a licensed acupuncturist who has the proper training, makes,
Hmm.
it's apples and oranges. It makes all the difference as well.
Yeah. Like, another thing for people, like, randomly, like when we go to cat, like, she just doesn't randomly start poking us. There is like like, first you go through like an intake session wherein she understands who you are as a person.
Mhm,
What do you
mhm,
do? What is your lifestyle? There are some questions I don't remember, but like that gave her a deeper insight of who I was as a person. What do I do? Where,
mhm.
like, where does the pain come from? And then every single time we visit her, like, going back to those things and kind of, just like being there, like, it is a very different feeling. Like, I don't have the right words to kind of explain the feeling, but like, yeah, when you get on the table, you get on with a very different energy and you're just like, okay, I'm here, and you surrender to everything. And then when you're getting off it, there are a lot of elements in your body that have changed. And then you take some time, you sit with yourself, you feel like a different person. You come in with the energy and you walk out with a different energy. So if anybody is like kind of into this entire phase of like overthinking, because actively I am a overthinker, like, that's my favorite sport. I keep telling this very often. It's a favorite sport. If it was an Olympics, I would definitely win some medals, guys. Like, it's
You're
that
not
fun.
alone, Gigi.
I know there are a lot of contenders, and I'm like, it helped me so much. Like, this is my recent experience. Like, I was overthinking everything to a part wherein I thought I was done,
Mm,
right? Like, I didn't see any better day after that. But like after my session, I'm just like, okay, you know what? I just had to slow down. I had to slow down my nervous system to find all of my answers by myself, right? It took me 2, 3 days to kind of whatever I was going through to just funnel it right. Like when you did your first session, what was your takeaway from like acupuncture?
And just to kind of piggyback on what you were saying, Gigi, that's exact
Uh-huh.
acupuncture. A lot of people don't realize this can shift perspective.
Hmm.
It can completely shift perspective. Something that I didn't really understand until it happened to me, and then being able to witness that through my patients. Right, where you can be in have one perspective, and then after the treatment, and then thereafter, your perspective broadens and shifts, which is amazing as well. But back to that question, oh my gosh, my first acupuncture treatment, I was working as a HIV case manager, and my clients were getting group or community style acupuncture, and it was totally not on my radar. Maybe I knew a little bit about it for pain, but the local Chinese medicine school was coming in to a space that was right next door to where I was working, and they were offering free community acupuncture to our clients. And I started hearing from my clients and seeing and witnessing firsthand like huge shifts in their emotional health and well-being. HIV patients were living with opportunistic infections, comorbidities, were managing serious medications, and I saw this really huge shift with quite a few of my clients. And then a couple of my clients had asked me, they're like, "Why don't you, come and get a treatment?" And I was actually kind of resistant. I was like, "Why would I need that?" Even though I was under so much overwhelming anxiety and stress in this job as a case manager, and decided, okay, I'm going to join them, and didn't know anything about the community acupuncture vibe. And I mean, it's. I know that the two of you've done that, Gigi, right? Community acupuncture. I mean, the vibe
No, I
is
have not.
you haven't. I mean, and so
No, no.
Nishani has, and it's such a different vibe than having an individual treatment. I mean, just that whole community group healing vibe that emanates when you're sitting in a room with other people who are getting, concurrently are getting treated. And I thought it was kind of odd at first and wasn't sure, what to expect. And I remember I fell asleep. I had gone through a small, brief intake, and it was to treat stress and anxiety and maybe some other random pain that I was experiencing. And I fell asleep. And I just remember getting off and just feeling so refreshed and so relaxed and loved it and was like, oh my gosh, and started going with my clients. And it was like, it really brought me together with my clients. And then that was the catalyst for me starting to look into like, okay, acupuncture. And that was my introduction. I had never had a one-on-one individual session. So it was all community. And it really helped me. It really helped me get off of anti-anxiety and antidepressants medications. And
Mhm.
it really helped calm my nervous system. I was in my early 30s at the time, and it was like acupuncture chose me. The bell, like the light went off in my head, and I was like, "This is what I'm supposed to be doing." Probably after a good 2 months of getting pretty
Mm.
consistent weekly treatments, and then started doing research. Talked to my husband, asked him. I said, I found a school in Seattle, Washington. I'd really like to go to, and we were living in Chicago, and had been Midwesterners our whole life. I was like, "How would you feel about moving to Seattle?" And he was game. He's like, "Let's do it," which I was very fortunate. Uh, so that was the trajectory and the path. Ended up moving out to out to Seattle probably about a year and a half, 2 years later, and went to a Chinese medicine, naturopathic medicine school called Bastyr University. And yeah, it was really, I really feel like it was a calling. I didn't, until it happens to you, until you have that understanding, like this
Mm.
is really what I'm supposed to be doing. I didn't know what I was supposed to be doing, but then it was like, this is it. Now I know. So that was how it started.
Wow.
I'm still amazed. It's been a wonderful journey and ride. I still am constantly learning, which is so exciting.
Mm.
Never a dull moment as an acupuncturist, no pun intended. So a
You know, it's
little joke here.
it's yeah. What's really awesome is that, you were talking about the scientific background with acupuncture, right? Because you're absolutely right. There's a lot of evidence about acupuncture. It's not meant to be a cure for all, but it certainly
No.
can support, right? Like HIV, there's no way to cure that through acupuncture, but to support the other symptoms that people may be experiencing, right? Just to support, I mean, maybe at that time it was a little different too, but I've seen the evolution of acupuncture. And in the Eastern world, which I know, Kat, I believe you mentioned you have visited the eastern parts of the world, and we've talked about Sri Lanka. And like in that part of the world, acupuncture does have a reputation. Like people don't like have a side eye look when you say you're going to an acupuncture appointment. At least I have not seen it happen because maybe it's just a little bit more, people understand that there are more ways to treat the body than just taking a pill or taking a certain drug and then calling it a day and then removing the symptom, right? And acupuncture to me is changing, like cleansing the blood. I know that's not really always the main primary goal of it, but that's something I had read up on way before I started, that it was helpful in like clearing the blood and cleansing the blood and like connecting the chi spots in the body, right? Like allowing everything to flow, because I think of the chakra system and how if there are blockages, those blockages cause different issues. And now Gigi has
Right.
openly confessed on her tremendous ability to overthink. And it is absolutely something that we all have available to us, even in therapy. I do have a lot of clients who will tell me that they are riddled with thoughts of things that will never actually happen, but for some reason they are consumed by them, consumed to a point where they cannot see past what's happening in their head. And I, I would talk to them about acupuncture. Not everybody's always open to it because it's not a very direct approach. Like people don't think like, what do you mean the needles are going to help me stop my anxiety or not make me feel depressed? Like it doesn't, nobody's making the connection. But I do think that's a education issue, not an accessibility issue, because there is access. There's plenty of acupuncturists in the country. This is more of like education and bringing this information out. And that's why when I found you, and when I was talking to you, I remember because Gigi talked about intake, you had specifically highlighted women's health, like hormonal balancing, fertility support, menopause and
Hmm.
perimenopause. And those were topics that were very specifically highlighted actually on your website. So I was thinking, because I at the time was experiencing kind of like sporadic cycles, my cycles were heavy, or I had a lot of cramping, or I felt miserable on day number 1 and 2, or like a week before. There was inconsistencies. And I, from knowledge, from just reading, Western medicine has failed women genuinely. I personally, I will say that I don't want to speak for every woman on the planet here, but it failed me completely. Right. Like
Hmm.
every time I would have a conversation with my doctor, whether that was an OBGYN or primary care, they basically just told me that's normal. Cramping? Oh, that's normal. Oh, you're suffering on day number 1 and 2? That's normal too. And I had frequently asked them to help me run like hormonal panels, help me run those tests. And they continuously refused me until I found a nurse practitioner on the side who later on was like, yeah, doctors don't usually want to do that because that's not, unless you have a health issue that's very like, I don't know, like very intense or severe, they will
Hmm.
not go into those depths because that means they're billing your insurance and, all of this. So acupuncture, unfortunately, is not covered by insurance because to me it's preventative care. And unfortunately, insurance providers are not. So I heard some insurance policies, there are some that do cover some,
There
I
are.
think. Maybe. Yeah. Okay, cool. Yeah. But majority that I have seen, I have not found anybody. Do you know? So, do you have clients, Kat, that actually do use insurance to cover their acupuncture appointments? How does that work?
So that's significantly changed in Michigan in like the last probably 7 to 10 years. And when I say significantly, there was probably very few providers, insurance providers that were covering acupuncture, offering acupuncture benefits. And in the last couple of, let's say, 5 to 6 years, there's been more providers that are offering benefits, but it's few and far between. It's usually the larger, the obvious insurance companies like BCBS,
Mm.
Aetna, United, and it's very specific plans. Now, the thing is, it also varies state by state because in Michigan, as an acupuncturist, you can get contracted with insurance, but depending on the insurance company and what the plan is, you either have to be under the umbrella of a
Mm,
medical doctor, a licensed medical doctor. And a lot of times that's only possible if you're working in a hospital setting
mm-hmm.
or if you're working at some type of integrated clinic or Western medical clinic. And it's a lot more difficult for acupuncturists to bill directly. Also, there's other caveats and other hoops to jump through and bureaucracy, but it's starting to happen slowly. And so to
Hmm.
answer your question, Shani, yes, I do have some, I personally am not credentialed or paneled with any insurance companies.
Yeah.
Um, and it's right, a cash-based practice out of pocket. I do offer packages that help decrease the cost or as a, hopefully to you know, uh, help with any type of barrier to treatment. But I do offer super bills, which are, detailed
Yeah. Yeah.
statements, coded statements that insurance companies want. And I try to work as best as I can with, my patients, clients that have insurance, but
Mm.
I can't personally submit since I'm not credentialed or paneled with
Credentialed.
them. So then I, offer super bill and they submit. Honestly, even though I'm considered out of network, I do have a fair amount of patients that are able to get some, what's the word I'm looking for?
Reimbursement.
Some,
Reimbursement.
reimbursement. Right, reimbursement, whatever that looks like for them, even though I'm out
Mm.
of network. So, I mean, at least they're getting reimbursement and it's not completely out of pocket. So there are some ways to navigate around it.
Hmm.
Right.
That's good to know because I think that's one of the barriers to for a lot of individuals. Because even in therapy, I would love to offer therapy out of pocket rather than being credentialed under insurance. But
Mhm.
these are considered luxury. I've actually had clients tell me therapy, acupuncture, those are like luxury services. Those are services that I would get if my world was not in on fire. And I'm like, it's so crazy because if you just
Right,
prioritized this, your world will stop being on fire because you will now have the tools to navigate the fire better.
right.
And it's that shift, right? So I that is something that's why I felt that Western medicine really failed me as a woman in helping me navigate my hormonal changes, especially as I ventured into my 30s. Things are changing, and I have friends who are in their late 30s or mid 30s who are experiencing perimenopause. And as women of color, we're apparently 2 to 3 times more likely to experience perimenopause earlier than our Caucasian counterparts. So there are some scientific evidence that
Mhm.
that does confirm that these things are going to be affecting women. And this is where I do think acupuncture. So I wanted to talk to you about that, like fertility, women's health, hormonal balances, because how would you explain how does acupuncture does and what kind of results have you noticed or what kind of support do you offer with with clients who are coming in for those services?
Sure. So currently my practice is probably 90% is women's health. I mean, I certainly treat men, but
Uh-huh.
it's evolved into women's health over the last probably decade. And I've had some, postgraduate certification and specific training in women's health, and at first it was fertility and kind of it was a baptism by fire because I started seeing women who were trying to get pregnant and didn't know a whole lot about, even as a woman, and I was in my late 30s at that point, about the reproductive system and just kind of we didn't learn as much as I would have liked to in my 3.5 year master's program. So it was like, I got to get some training in this. I really need to understand what's going on and worked with some OBs and some other fertility based acupuncturists in Chicago. And, you know, really got to learn about what was going on with cycles. And in turn, it really helped me understand what was going on because I actually started early menopause probably or at least earlier than maybe other Caucasian women or women in my immediate family. I started in my late 30s, early 40s.
Mm,
So, I mean, the evolvement and the trajectory of women's health is what I exclusively pretty much focus on right now, but it's expanded. It was fertility, but I mean, I treat women from the start of menses all the way into, I have patients who are well into their 80s, obviously way, way past postmenopausal, But I would have to say, yeah, women of who are looking to try to conceive or who are thinking along down the line, maybe I don't want to start a family right now, but I would
Mm.
like to working on aspects of my cycle that I don't think are right. Like, right, I've gone to see my OBGYN and they've said, you know what, you're fine, or here, take this,
Mhm.
or you know what, this is just normal, but it's not. It's not the norm, and I thought my heavy cycle
Mm.
was norm. And then come to find out after I went to school and started studying more about women's health in relationship to Chinese medicine, I'm like, no, this isn't normal. And
Yep.
there are things you can do, and acupuncture and Chinese herbs are one of them. But I've really seen how acupuncture can help regulate cycles from day one, start of your period, all the way through every phase from follicular to ovulatory to luteal, whether you're trying to conceive or not. And it's very specific. It's very individualized. It's not a cookie cutter. I could treat two women who are the same age, who have similar cycles, and obviously it's going to be very, very different because they're very different individuals. There's so many different nuances and layers to what's going on. So it keeps there's so much to learn about and so much that my patients have been so wonderful and willing to teach me that, when I will admit if I didn't know when I didn't know, and some things if I still don't know, I don't know. And it's wonderful to have my patients be able to educate me, and it's always so dynamic and growing. But I've been able to see, regulation of cycles. I treat women with PCOS,
Mhm.
endometriosis,
Mm.
women who are right perimenopausal, everything from night sweats to hot flashes to achy bodies. That's something that isn't talked a lot with during perimenopause and menopause. The loss of estrogen and how that affects muscle tone and how you feel in your body, disrupted sleep. I mean, the emotional
Yeah.
aspect of all of that, and just navigating everything. And I try to be an ally and advocate for women because a lot of times they don't, during all of these phases, because they don't have maybe a go-to, or
Mhm.
their healthcare provider, practitioner isn't giving them enough information. So I try to share as much as possible without overwhelming them, to be like, okay, this is what we can do to really work on managing expectations, what you can see with each treatment, the treatment plan and protocol, and what you can expect and results. And it's really wonderful when you see that like aha moment when women are like, oh my gosh, I don't have to live with this pain. I don't have to be, just because I was diagnosed with stage 3 endometriosis, I don't have to be in excruciating pain that takes me down and out for 17 days out of the month. And I'm losing work, and or I have to go on FMLA, or all of these things where it's compromising quality of life. And it's like, it's about managing pain. It's about decreasing inflammation and stress. And it's really about, like I said, setting these realistic expectations in women's health. So
Wow.
I don't know if that
Oh,
answered it. That was kind of a woo through that. But I mean, a it's such a
yeah.
profound thing to be able to treat women, and it's taught me so much about being
Mm.
female and things that I knew nothing about being a woman. And
Thank you so much for that. Like, it really helps because Nishani and I are, I'm going to say, like, mid 30s kind of a deal. And like navigating everything, like all of this information is pretty much helping because we see things unfolding in front of us as we are going through things. Our bodies were not same when we were in, like, early 30s or like in our late 20s. Now we can actually see there are some changes. And understanding your body is something that nobody has ever taught us, right?
mm,
Like, nobody told us to look at ourselves and understand what you're going through. So people always taught you have to act a certain way. But no, I don't want to because it's not flowing naturally through me. And you only get this autonomy, I'm going to say, like, well, in your 30s or something. So you stand up for yourself and say, like, no, thank you so much. I'm not going to do that. Whatever situation you could be in your life for that. So, like, having all of that information coming from you, I think it took me a few seconds. I was like literally digesting as we went, though, like, we end up having conversation. Like, that was really,
right.
really nice information. My other question to you would be now that, you're working with women and like women's health, what is the area that like people store a lot of their stress or something that is very difficult for them to navigate through. Like they think it's not like the area of their body that's concerning, it's something that they did, and that's why they have this pain. But technically, it's, coming down through a series of things. So, like, what would that area be like where people are storing like their stress?
Okay, so great question. I think the obvious area that I think I've witnessed, and I don't know if you guys could concur with this, is that I think women hold most of our stress neck and shoulders.
Huh?
It's just it's the weight of the world. It's being a woman. It's everything is, we're looking at screens, computers, we're constantly looking down, and it's
Mhm,
occupational hazard. But that's what I notice.
mm,
But I've seen so much women hold so much stress and grief in their
mm,
in their girdle, around their pelvis and their sacrum. So much going on in the glutes and in the
mm,
pelvis and sacrum. And I think it's something that, like, women are just they're not aware of,
mhm,
or they're just not making the connection. I mean, I wouldn't have made the connection had I not learned about this over the last how many years, 10, 15 years, and also experienced it. Like, wow, I'm holding a lot of stress in my pelvis. And why? And it's like, clenching even when I should be relaxing, even if I'm in a situation where I am relaxing. And I've seen a lot of women talking about that, and how that's affecting the lower half of their body and the upper half. And
yeah, yeah,
it's something that I work with all the time, and to be able to help open up the pelvic girdle and the
yep,
sacrum and relax these muscles, and this is such a obviously sacred area, so
yeah,
vulnerable, so sacred to us, first chakra, and all of our orifices, as well as all of those amazing functions, and our orifices that lead to our reproductive organs. And so sometimes I learn from, I think I've witnessed and learned from my patients that, like, and it's not trusting that. And it's like, it's
mm,
learning about to trust, work through a lot of emotion, and grief seems to be a big one that tends to get manifest in that area, and really, feeling safe in that process. So that's where I see a lot of that being held.
yeah. I
Right.
mean, you basically nailed it by identifying the shoulder and the neck, because I
Mhm.
think even before we got into this conversation,
Right.
before we even
I
got
mean,
into
and,
this
and
conversation.
that seems to be a given. But yeah, and then obviously I think as women, because of cultural and social conditioning, I also see women who, and I do this myself. I am not able to a lot of times open up my diaphragm. I think even if you practice meditation and specific styles of breathing, it's really, to do deep belly breathing, and to be able to,
Mm,
like, trust in, like, instead of holding in your stomach, holding in your abdomen, everything's got to be constricted and contracted and tight. It's like opening up and creating this expansion. And women tend to hold a lot in their diaphragm, which affects, their pecs,
mm,
their upper half, which is going to also affect neck and shoulders, headaches, things like that. But just being able to soften these really vulnerable places, like the sacrum, the pelvis, and
mhm,
the chest and diaphragm, and then, like, be able to connect and keep both connected. I mean, that's a whole
mm.
nother podcast on this whole
Yeah.
theory of connecting that, but I see that as well.
Before we get back to our conversation, here's a little local love that I want to share with our community. Today's episode is brewed with heart by Integrity Coffee, where they offer fresh roast, real flavor, and Michigan made goodness in every cup. Grab your bag at integritycoffee22.com and use our special code HONEST20 for 20% off.
No, as you were kind of walking us through this, like I remember how I feel after every session, because again, as you mentioned, we all are holding it in our upper shoulder, our backs, or like, the entire diaphragm. I have felt it. And then when you walk out of the session, it's not like a magic trick that happens, but like, as you mentioned, it's that acu-high that you're going through. And it takes a certain while. Like you have to be in tune with your body to
Mm,
understand these changes that you go through. It will never tell you like straight up, hey, I'm going through this change. But it's very like gradual. Like I deal with psoriasis. I'm sure that there are the people who deal with this. My it's not like my psoriasis has gone down in the last few months, but it's the itching that has gone down. Like that is the most annoying part. Like you're sitting somewhere and you constantly have to itch. Yes, like I still have to deal with the other parts of psoriasis. Like it's not an overnight journey. I've dealt with it for like, I don't know, last 10, 12 years. And after that, like when I see in 3 to 4 months, I think 3, 4 months that I've been working with CAD, that itching part of my life has gone low. It is like in my life, that's the biggest change that has happened, right? Like, but it took some time. It took me that consistency to kind of go through that. And every single time I'll give her an update, I'm like, you know what, I feel much better here because, yeah. And then again, like I start my the best game that I'm at, which is overthinking. Like things do come back to me, and then
Mm.
now I know that I have to put a hard stop to it. And like Nishani, thank you so much for introducing me to acupuncture because that was the best birthday gift anybody could get. Um, yeah, I'm very new. I like
Lovely.
this January, yeah, she got me that as a birthday gift. And honestly, not just my psoriasis, but I think the entire thing in my life has navigated. Like, and it's not like the biggest change that I'm seeing, but those small things that accumulate and become bigger. Like,
Right.
how do I put a stop to something that's going on and like, put myself in a different situation? Like once after your session, I left and my husband called me and he's like, "What are you going to have for dinner?" I said, "I'm okay with anything." And he's like, "No, I want you to tell me what you want." I said, "I'm okay with anything." He wanted me to pick a fight with him. And I'm like, you know what? I'm out of my session. I am not doing that. Like, if you really want me to fight, right? Like, give it some time, hold this thing, write it somewhere, keep it for 15 days. I'll get back to you on that.
That's Gigi. That's funny.
Like, I literally was on Woodward when I'm driving, and I'm like, no, I do not want to argue with you on this. And I know what you're trying to do. You're trying to get a reaction out of me. And I'm
Right.
just out of my session because, as Nishani mentioned, we act really different. Like, it's like, as if you're walking one way and then somebody just lifts and puts you back on the right way.
Mm-hmm.
Mm.
You are still
Right.
continuing, you are still doing what you are doing, but then other people are like, she was here in the morning, like why is she suddenly here? So
Yes.
like especially, yes, it's for our husbands or partners. Their brain cannot take
And
you
it, treatments can also strengthen boundaries, which is a really big.
Mm.
And I think it's hard sometimes for people to understand that when they're first starting acupuncture and you're explaining like it can shift perspective and it can strengthen boundaries where it's like, we're all filtering in and taking in so much from
Mm.
from the collective vibe of everything going on and then our own personal lives. I know there's so many other forms of therapies that also support this as well, but acupuncture can really help strengthen boundaries where it's like, no, that's yours. I got
Yeah.
mine. And I'm not going to allow all this other stuff to filter in. I mean, we're going to constantly be living in, it's very stressful times and navigating through this, but it really can help strengthen that. Oh my gosh, there's a deer in my backyard. I'm looking out my window. There's a deer in the backyard. Interesting.
what a
I wonder
beautiful.
if, I
It's
wonder if
so cute.
a wonderful sign. Oh my goodness, that's
Yes,
crazy.
yes, it is.
So it's strengthening that. And then I also think, acupuncture really is kind of like muscle memory
Mm.
or other forms of therapies that create that either
Hmm.
emotional or physical muscle memory where it's like, you know, you can acupuncture works well with multiple treatments on the front end, depending on what you're presenting with, whatever condition you have, and then getting those multiple treatments because it creates this foundation and it's the cumulative effect. But then it achieves goals or you see these shifts and changes in health and well-being, and then the goal is and designed to you come less frequently, you know and it's like, again, I always like to come back to managing expectations. It's really important. It's not like, oh, you should just keep coming and we'll see
Yeah.
what happens. It's no, it's very specific. We need to have a treatment plan. We need to have very specific markers set in place so that you can see milestones, you can see changes. And I always like to check in with patients and ask them, the people in your life that you spend the most time with, whether it be your spouse, your partner, a sister, friend,
Hmm.
anybody, they will usually see the changes and the shifts, just like, with all humans, faster, swifter than we do in
Yeah.
ourselves. That also shows that, like, when you come back and you have a little reset after
Mm.
we've worked on your chief complaint or whatever you wanted to, whether it's stress or, anxiety. And then you come back less frequently. And it's almost like that treatment is the switch that your body goes into. Oh, I've done this before. I know what's going on, the nervous system. And it's like muscle memory for, the nervous system with acupuncture.
Yeah. Well said. In fact, I think
Yeah.
that's going to be the biggest takeaway for me, the boundaries that it helps you
Uh-huh.
establish your boundaries and maintain firm boundaries because we oftentimes I think even in the mental health world, right, when you are consumed by anxiety and depression, it's like it's foggy skies every day, right? Like we had some stormy days here in Michigan a couple of days ago, and now we have sunny, beautiful skies. When we
Right.
are in that foggy, stormy environment, it's almost like we forget that the sun exists, that it's on the other side because we're consumed by what's happening. And I think in the mental health world, right, we're bombarded by, as you said, very well put, Kat, like the external world is so distracting. And whether that's people we care about, whether that's people we work with, whatever, even people we don't care about, somehow it does affect us because we're energetic beings. We're part of a collective consciousness. Like we are affected by each other. But there
Right.
is a method for us to create a safe bubble around
Right.
us. But when you're in the stormy skies, and if you've only ever been in stormy worlds and stormy skies, you don't even know that your body,
Right.
like your mind, forgets, right? And then you experience something that teaches your brain, that expands the elasticity of the brain, that shows it like we can have this ability. I can keep moving through this stormy environment and get to the sunny side. And then I can, even if the stormy skies will approach, because Lord knows life loves to throw different challenges, we can't prevent what
Right.
happens, right? But how we approach the storm, what we do with the storm, especially
Mhm.
considering that the brain has now memory of, wait, I know that I'm capable of achieving a state of Zen. I'm capable of
Yeah.
moving through this. And that allows me to have faith, whether that's openly expressed or internally believed, right? It's a core belief that gets instilled. So I think you put that really well. I want everybody who's ever like in my mental health practice, in my therapy clients, I tell them all about acupuncture, whether I because I'm usually not like trying to pitch these other modalities in the therapy
Mhm.
world. But I don't believe talk therapy is the only way for wellness. I believe that it's one of the tools that can be strategically
Right.
used. But I always rely, I'm like, maybe talking might not be helpful at a certain point. Talking actually does not do you any good. It can just further exaggerate what you're already going through because you cannot see. It's like you have
Mhm.
visors on and all you can see is what's in front of you and what's causing you the issue and what's stressing you out. So I think that is probably one of going to be the biggest takeaway for me, like establishing and being able to set clear firm boundaries because you start to see your brain's elasticity, your brain's ability to perceive things expands. That creates a muscle memory. So then all of a sudden you get people trying to get you out of that zen zone, right? Like Gigi's husband trying to pick a small little tiff. And she's like, well, I hate to break it to you, but you can't, like, nothing can take me out of this experience
Right.
right now. And give me like 15, 20 days because life will happen. And then I will probably shift out and, and we've heard of Gigi apparently has the ability to get really angry. We've heard from her husband. So he has experienced, he has
I
experienced.
have an acupuncture for that, Gigi, that I can share with you that and that was beautifully expressed, Nishani. That was gorgeous metaphor about yes, about the
Yeah.
storm. And and people who haven't from all walks of life and all experiences and you just how they
Mm,
perceive and how they are able to navigate. And I just feel like right, puncture is a great tool for everyone because it's not contraindicated and it's there's yeah, there's
yeah.
no contraindication. It treats
Yeah.
everyone. It's good for young to old, men and women.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. We
Absolutely.
mentioned some time back about all of these, things being like if you have like extra income or if you have disposable income is when you can go experience all of these things. Sometimes I feel like people can set their priorities, right? Like
Mm,
you can.
you have to prioritize something that holds some changes in your life, and then you can, like, I evaluate my life like that. Sometimes I would be like, if I don't go out today, if I don't spend on that cocktail and dinner, I can definitely afford this. But do I want temporary, like, happiness, or do I want something that will last me some time? And usually people don't look at the things that they are supposed to do for themselves, and they don't hold it in high regards. They think going out, doing a particular kind of an activity, like I had to substitute doing my nails for
Mm.
like acupuncture, and I did it willingly. I was like, you know what? This holds more priority. And you're talking to somebody, I've done my nails like for 10 years consistently in my life. That is one thing, like, that gives me the immense joy. I have no idea why. I've not figured it out yet, but that brings me joy. But then I'm like, no, I think that's not my top priority right now. I'm going through a different phase in my life. I'm going through this entrepreneur journey, which is not pretty easy. I have just moved countries. I'm navigating a bunch of other things. My nails being on point is not getting me a lot at this point, right? Like, my priority is getting my mental state in motion, putting those pauses when I require them to have those pauses. And I'm like, you know what? It sets all of those things in motion for me. Then I'm like, you know what? You weigh it out. And it's not like, oh, I'm never going to go do my nails ever again. But
Right.
there will come a time, right? Like, okay, right now, oh, I can do this better, or I'm better at managing all of these things now. Oh, like, for a good second high, oh, I can go do my nails as well. So, like, people have to learn and how to prioritize them.
Mm.
And I know we are almost getting to an hour, but like, we mentioned about this, and I think me and Nishani also would like to know more about it.
Yeah.
Facial acupuncture.
Yeah.
And so in my life, I've done micro needling, I'm going to say once, but I
Okay.
think those two are two different things. So we'd like you to shed
They
some
are
light
very
on.
different. Yes. Did you like the microneedling session you had?
I did, but I just thought it was too much. Like, for some time, I'm just like, I cannot constantly take those needles going in my face. And like, your skin is also a little, but I got really good results after that. Like, I
Okay.
deal with a lot of acne, deal with a lot of blemishes. So for me, I really got good results out of it later, right?
Yes.
So they were like gone. So yeah, microneedling kind of did help me.
And to your point, yes, microneedling and facial acupuncture are very different, although I do microneedling as well. So I've been certified and trained with my mentor. Her name is Michelle Gellis, and she is an acupuncturist she's kind of like the leading foremost facial acupuncturist in the United States. And I've done extensive training with her. Facial acupuncture differs because, right, you're actually using the muscle structure and the muscle belly and stimulating these very, like, almost like trigger points in the muscles, and it does some things that are different than microneedling. Microneedling is really good for like scarring, acne scarring, other types of scars,
Mm-hmm.
texture, hyperpigmentation, women who show up with melasma, like kind of patches on their skin. And it can also help with hair growth, like I have very thinning eyebrows, and I've been doing microneedling on that. And it
Mm.
can also help with stimulating hair growth around the edge of the scalp. Now, the thing is, right, microneedling is not going to stimulate hair growth like on your face where you don't want hair growth if you don't want that. But facial acupuncture is excels at lifting and toning. So,
Mm.
if you're looking at and natural anti-aging, because there's multiple acupuncture points all over the face that
Mm.
can be used to treat other conditions, not just not just local to the skin or to the face. And there's and all of the meridians in the body end up on the face. So it's really interesting. You can treat many different presentations, conditions, but if you're going for, like, we're going to work on facial acupuncture, anti-aging, it's a wonderful alternative to getting other kind of medical grade type cosmetic services. And there's
Mm-hmm.
no judgment.
Yeah.
I've got a lot of patients who do get Botox or fillers, Juvederm,
Mm-hmm.
and but they also get facial acupuncture. For me, it just helps on a global perspective, because what sets facial acupuncture aside and through my training is that you also treat the entire body. So it's a total full constitutional treatment as opposed to just getting the facial acupuncture. So it's addressing everything from digestion to sleep to nervous system to hormone, imbalances. And so, you're going to, shows up on the face, the internal will reflect externally. And so that's critical to the type of facial acupuncture that I do. And then that's where I've seen so many more changes and in women's texture and tone. It can lift, it can also move lymph that pools around the eyes and around the chin. It also can, like, I've been working on my neck with the loss of estrogen has done a nice little drop, but I've been working on it and it's gradually starting to lift. But that's also setting these realistic expectations. I have a couple of patients who are in their late 20s who started wanting to, who contacted me and they're like, we want to get facial acupuncture. And, again, no judgment. If you want to start as early as however early you want, and it's about anti-aging, and they talk about skincare and health and lifestyle, and then set up a treatment plan that works for them and their budget and realistically for their age. But that's always something that I want to be realistic. I mean, it's just when you've lived a life and it shows up on your face, if you want a more natural anti-aging approach that helps constitutionally, that's where I really recommend facial acupuncture. And it's not a radical change, Facial acupuncture can't compete with Botox. That is immediate. Facial acupuncture is over a period and progression of X amount of treatments based on the individual, what their health is like, what their skin health is like. But it also includes a 30-minute LED light, red light treatment that stimulates collagen and elastin, and then facial cupping and gua sha. And I mean, if I could get facial acupuncture every week, I do it, but it's difficult to do it to myself. And I have a colleague who's also trained. We just haven't been able to sync up our schedules that well, but it's so profoundly, deliciously luxurious and grounding with the full body constitutional treatment. It's something else. Like, ladies, if you like acupuncture, you would love the facial acupuncture because it's really profound and it's amazing. And it just makes you look dewy and glowy and it improves blood flow and oxygen. And it's also going to help with mental health as well.
Yeah. No, honestly, like you're saying all of these things, I'm like taking notes. I'm like, this is something that we're considering next. Yes.
Yeah, I was thinking I definitely want to try this because you know what? As you were talking about this, I had a family member who was noticing that one of their eyes was drooping.
Mhm.
And I have noticed this about our faces. Like half of our face has a more like toned, lifted structure, and the other half, sometimes people will experience it's a little bit more sleepy, droopy, people describe it. And
Right.
I think in a way what you said was also, I was thinking like, I wonder if that can also help because you're right. Lymph nodes in the face, like,
Right.
and the family member, they opted for surgery. And I remember
Yes.
telling them, I'm like, there was face yoga. I told them gua sha. I was like, you could be, but I'm like, but then you have to do that every day. You kind of
Right.
have to be religious about that. So I
Right.
think, and there's massages, there's things you could be doing. So it's really cool. I am absolute like you have me very interested in it now, especially knowing what it means because I was like, what does facial acupuncture mean? And I kept reading about it at your office, when I'm sitting there waiting. I was like, maybe one day. And I was thinking like maybe it's for somebody who is in their 40s, 50s. Maybe that makes more sense because you might be noticing, like you said, right, our hormonal changes that can cause certain effects. And Botox, yes, as you said, no judgment, but perhaps maybe there are more than one way because Botox can be expensive. Like that's not a very,
Right.
I mean, this is not a cheap procedure over a
No.
long period of time. It
And
requires
it also
consistent.
has a specific shelf life. It has a
Mm,
specific start and end, and then you have to and this is a question I get from, um, prospective patients or just, talking to individuals. They're like, "Okay, so if I've gotten Botox or fillables or injection, whatever, Juvederm, what is facial acupuncture? How is that compared to? And it's like, well, I mean,
Mm,
it's you're not injecting a filler or a lag botulism. This is all natural. And yes, realistically, a certain amount of treatments per individual, but you can see the change because it stimulates the muscle tone, and that's has longevity and sustainability. And I guess if you did a handful of treatments here or there, you'll see some change. It
mhm,
also depends on diet, nutrition, lifestyle, exercise. There's so many other factors that will help support the total
mm,
picture, and, to there is a progression. And yes, I guess if you got one facial acupuncture treatment and never got another one, it's not going to make a radical difference. You
yeah.
might see some nice, slight, subtle changes, but it does, but it's not something that you have to get weekly, monthly for the rest of your life. You will see
Mm,
changes that have sustained, lasting results. And then
mm,
there's also, I offer protocols if you want to see these sustained changes, come in for a reset here or there.
mm,
I try to work with women's schedules, their budgets, and being realistic because it can't just be just this. There's
yep.
other ways that we can work with this and navigate
Mm,
and have some flexibility, but be manage expectations, and see that you will get results. So I'm going to invite both of you for complimentary facial acupuncture treatments whenever you want. I'd love to take care of you. Facial acupuncture is probably my favorite treatment. I mean, I love treating women, and I also have some male clients who get facial acupuncture.
yes.
Fewer and far between, but I love treating women for facial acupuncture because I'm projecting on, like, how much I want it. But I'd love for you I'd love for you guys to come in and experience this and have a complimentary treatment, please.
Oh my gosh.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very
But
much.
yeah, like having said that, like cat has really, really been for me, like it's been what 6 months now that I've been working with cat,
Yes.
5 or 6 months. I'm seeing a massive change in my I'm not like yeah, day to day plus like how I can break some patterns for myself. And I'm a newbie, right? Like Nishani has worked with her for 3 years almost, that's what she mentioned. But like if you guys are going through something or if you need like an understanding of your body, like rather than just doing and repeating the same old patterns, break out of it, try something that you're uncomfortable with or the thought of needles. It's the most relaxing thing. I know it sounds very weird when we say it, but it's the most relaxing thing that you can give yourself, your body. Your entire nervous system is going to thank you after that session. Like notice yourself or record a video before you get in and record a video once you come out. You will see the stark
Great.
difference.
That's a great recommendation, Gigi. Yes.
Yeah.
Actually, I have a patient that I've posted a couple times on social media where she's done that. She's
Yeah.
actually video herself before she's coming in, and then she'll do one in her car right after. And it's so amazing. It's like night and day. It's really
Mhm.
to watch.
No, I feel that because I'm somebody who talks really fast, right? Like, and then sometimes when you're talking fast, you just want whatever is going on in your brain to be at other person's brain at the same exact minute. You don't want to use your words. And I know I do that most of the times. My husband is like, use your words. There are words, use them. And I'm like, yes, I'm trying. But like after I come back from a session, it's easier because there are not 10 other things that are going on that's, stopping me to complete my thought and convey the message that I have to convey it to him. And then, as you mentioned, I think this was my first or second session with Kat. And then she mentioned, you will know when your body requires the next session. Let it
Mm,
tell you. And I'm like, oh, we'll see. I'm like, I was not too sure about that feeling. So I used to put a reminder on my phone initially. And then I'm like, before the reminder went off, oh, I think now I know it's the time. Like now I can notice the difference on cats. It's your body will be like, it's time. It's time. We need that deeper
Right.
reset.
I do have patients who will say, right, they'll text me and say, it's been about 2.5, 3 weeks. It's time for me to come in. Right. And I mean, once again, if we're working on a specific issue,
mm,
condition, presentation that requires weekly treatments over a specific, more consecutively, sure. But usually the reset, it's like
mhm,
when you've had acupuncture or, you're in tune to that and your body understands. It's like, oh yeah, It's time. Or
Yeah.
it's long overdue. I need to, I need to get a treatment, something like
Yeah,
that.
that was me. That was me yesterday because I was looking at Kat's calendar, which by the way, she's updated her website. There's a lot of new information on there that everybody should check out. We'll put that information in the
Mhm.
show notes.
Yep.
But I was looking at her site and I was like, okay, gotta find an appointment. And I wanted a same day because I was experiencing a headache for 2 days between Monday and Tuesday. And it was so intense to a point where I wasn't able to really function. Like I couldn't look at anything. I could kind of get through the day, but it just kept coming back and it was lingering in the back of my mind, back of my head. And I was thinking, because I worked with Kat, which by the way, Kat also works with another specialist. She specializes in Rolf, which is another massage technique that does fascia work, which there's a sneak peek that we will also be inviting her because I cannot wait to get into the conversation of fascia work. And between Kat, between Kim and my chiropractor, I have learned that the neck tension, the shoulder tension is what usually causes my headaches to come out. Sometimes it's water, sometimes it's food, or I'm just tired. All right.
Right.
But most of the time for me, I've noticed it comes from that tension that I'm holding. And so yesterday, Kat really worked on my shoulders. Like I can't obviously turn around and show you guys my back, but there's like indentations of the cupping. Like, usually there's like discoloration after cupping. Not to be alarmed. It's not going to do anything for you. It's just a
Right.
sign that those areas required a little bit more attention. There was a little bit more work and more blood flow that needed to come to that space. So the discoloration means different things. But Kat was like scraping my neck and my shoulders, and afterwards, like I felt sore the whole day. It was like I went to a workout. And I
Okay.
remember I remember telling my partner, because he had a Rolf appointment, both him and I, we were at Kat's business at the same time. He was getting one treatment, I was getting another, and that was his first time. So after we came back, he was like, "Okay, I'm gonna go mow the lawn." I was like, "How about you just take it easy and give yourself another hour before you decide to do anything?" And then within an hour, he was like, "I feel really tired. Like I did a workout." I'm like, "Yep, your
Yes.
body needs time." And I was like, "Today is just for water. Drink lots of water. Let's just chill. Let's make sure we get a good healthy meal." And we cooked at home. And we made some Sri Lankan food, and we just like kind of rested and allowed ourselves. And he was ready to go. But I have learned, after working with all of these wonderful, wonderful ladies in these specialties, I have learned that that day is a day for just stillness, not to push beyond. And today, I feel like a new person. My
I
shoulder
was
pain
just
is
going to ask
completely
you.
gone. Yeah,
No, well,
completely gone.
no
No
headache.
neck,
Awesome.
nothing at
Great.
all. Yeah, I felt so energized when I woke up this morning, and I was like, and then I remembered, oh yeah, I saw Kat yesterday. Sometimes I'll forget. I'm like, that was what was different. I'm like, because it's not like I slept significantly better last night compared to the previous nights, but my sleep changes over time after seeing Kat. Like, it's not the same day. It's like within a couple of days, I start to notice the difference. But my shoulder and neck, the tension that I was feeling because I was very sore yesterday, all of that disappeared as of this morning. And now I'm going to go work out today, and I feel stronger, and it's helped my body evolve into a much stronger version, because that's what I'm looking for. As you said, Kat, longevity. And you kept mentioning managing expectations. I think that's so imperative, because you're educating people on what it is that they need to expect in their treatment journey, because it's not going to be overnight. And if they do not want to commit to a kind of a long-term plan, then maybe it might not be a good fit. Because if I came every 5 months to see you, I don't know if I would have noticed the same differences.
Exactly.
I saw you, I think, every 3 to 4 weeks when I first started off. And then I've been like pushing it to every month and a half, kind of. But that's also because I've been substituting other services and I've been mixing and matching. This is what I want to really embrace, is the integrative model doesn't need to be one method fixes all, right? It's
Exactly.
so
And
many.
that's something I try to constantly educate everyone I come into contact with. It's like, I think as human beings, we want to isolate the one
Mm,
thing that we're getting relief from. That's just not how it works. It's, for most people, maybe for some people, but for most people, it takes some successes and failures. It takes some things to try to figure out,
yeah.
navigate but it's
Mm,
usually more than just one thing. And the great thing about acupuncture, right? Acupuncture is so complementary with chiropractic therapy, with
mhm,
massage, with any type of
mhm,
body work, with talk therapy, with
mhm,
dance movement therapy. I mean, it's very complementary to all kinds of Western medical specialties and
mm,
services, and it helps to enhance, and it's gives that boost, and it does something that, what Western medicine can do, Chinese
mhm.
medicine can't do, but what Chinese medicine can, Western medicine can't. And so it'll be
Yeah.
what really would be thrilling is to see more of emerging and
Mm,
integration of these two. It is happening slowly,
yes.
and it takes time, but that would be really thrilling. It is happening in a lot of learning institutions and in hospitals all over the country.
Mhm,
But that's something that is very exciting to see, and especially here in Michigan. Ever since I moved back in 2017, things have radically changed in the last 9 years with the acceptance or the interest and the support, more so the Western medical community. So that's pretty thrilling.
yeah.
Also, like I'm going to say, like everybody the pandemic kind of brought a lot of alternative medicines on the table.
Mhm.
People started looking at therapy in a positive light and not just like, oh my God, like only you can do it when you need survival. We started looking at, I'm going to say, maybe any kind of healing, right? Like, right from acupuncture to like somebody with hypno or anything like that. Like, it just transformed the way of like learning, looking, and receiving that kind of healing for yourself. I think, yeah, as an entire thing, we are going through that shift of acknowledging that these were the practices that were done in the past. We somewhere forgot with science and everything. We wanted everything to be constantly like science back. And now we are going back to our roots and being like, hey, this worked for our ancestors. And we
Mhm,
need to touch and we need to find a base between our roots and what we have learned in the Western world, as like not the Western world, like Western medicines. I'm going to say they're not bad. This is not bad. It's just like finding your perfect balance between all of them. You do not have to resort to the last version, which is the medicines. You
mhm,
can do preventive care and just take care of, small things in your life. And this literally feels more like a rejuvenating session for yourself. Like you're going to thank yourself after the session, right? It's not going to feel like, oh my God, I went for this and now I've come out of it so much pain. It's just going to be like, it's just going to be like really a nice session for yourself. Like, how you go for massages and you're just like, oh, that was a self care.
mm,
Acupuncture is one of them. It is literally like a therapy, right? Like you walk
mhm,
in and then you come out like a transformed person. So yeah, like if anybody is looking for self-care options for themselves, please add acupuncture in your list is what I would
mm,
recommend. And if you're somewhere around Metro Detroit area, Cat is in Royal Oak. Really, really like somebody who has helped me look at my life in a different way. Like since I've come to Michigan, I have met people who understood where I was coming from, and I'm getting those kind of, the navigation is in the right path for me because initially nobody understood my language. Sometimes I felt like that because I'm like, oh no, I feel like this, but I don't want to do it this way. And then everybody was like, oh, but you're weird. And I'm like, no, but it is fine. It's okay. And then since I've come to Michigan, they're like, oh no, but you can do this. And I was like, I like this. So, thank you so much, both of you, for that, because I'm going to say it was through Nishani that I met Kat, and both of them have really helped me like settle in Michigan as well and understand that it's not just one way of looking at healing.
mm,
So, yeah,
mm.
thank you so much, ladies, for that.
Yeah. Kat, I guess before we wrap up, what's something? Is there anything that you wish the audience would need to know? Anything that you felt that we maybe didn't get into, or things, just thoughts that just before we wrap up, I want to make sure I'm checking in. I don't know if we asked all of the great questions, but I felt like this was an incredible conversation. I learned a lot more than I actually thought I knew. I thought I knew everything about acupuncture. I'm like, oh,
And I learned a lot from both of you. And no, and this is like the beauty of this podcast. We were able to just riff and keep this organic and flowing. I mean, there's so much more. There's a couple of things I was trying to, stay very engaged and present. And then there was a couple times things popped up. I was like, well, I could talk about this, but you know what? We go down another path. So, I mean, I would just say that, if any of your listeners have any questions that,
Mm,
they were thinking like, whatever question about acupuncture, Chinese medicine, facial acupuncture, women's health, because I just scratched the surface.
yes.
They're more than I'm more than happy to, discuss any questions. They can email me. I also do complimentary consults, like
Hmm.
15 to 20-minute consults to answer questions, when someone is not ready to book directly because they have more questions.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
which very, very, open to that and want to be able to educate uh,
Hmm.
people as much as possible, even if they don't book with me or they find another acupuncturist. I just want you to see an acupuncture. I just want you to get acupuncture. If it's not for me, find an acupuncturist that you connect with, that you vibe with, that is in your neighborhood, city, or
Hmm.
it's, you know, um, and just know that like acupuncture is all about decreasing stress and inflammation. These are
Mm,
kind of just the basic concept that I constantly want to like share that, if you decrease systemic
mm,
uh, stress and inflammation in the body, that's going to have a ripple effect, a profound effect on everything, on your physical well-being, on emotional well-being, psycho-spiritual well-being. It really has a global effect. And so that is what acupuncture is always doing with every treatment, aside from focusing on a specific condition, treatment, the individual. So that's how it works for everyone. That's I feel like that's where we need to be. We all
yeah.
need to continuously keep decreasing stress and inflammation in our
Yes.
lives, in
Yes.
our bodies, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I think that's a great way to end because inflammation is the cause of every single issue that we experience as a diagnosis is caused by
Right,
inflammation in the body.
right,
Mental health inflammation it is somewhere in the brain
exactly.
that's it and we know that the body remembers things. You talked about muscle memory. So yeah, we absolutely thank you so much for being open to receiving questions if there is anybody who is curious because yeah, I think it's okay to be skeptical. It's okay. In fact, I challenge anybody who thinks this is woo woo to talk to Kat, at least experience her introductory because that's a three sessions in one package that you can purchase for a pretty great discounted rate if I would say and just giving it a shot and then I'm willing to take bets that I'm willing to give your money back. I will pay out
Ooh,
of pocket because I do think that this whole concept of woo woo and people thinking it's never going to change or they constantly have to live in this pain or live in the reality, right, the stormy cloudy environment that they think that they belong to. Like there is ways to experience a sunny day, the sunny skies and clear sky days, but it's about taking that challenge and taking a chance on you. As Gigi said so well, this is a form of showing self-love. Like
mhm,
if you
yeah.
prioritize this over a drink, over a meal, which I'm a big foodie, so like it can be difficult for me to be like acupuncture over a meal out, but I am a firm, firm believer. I am a firm believer. In fact, the nail tech even asks me, "Where's Gigi?" I'm like, "Gigi has chosen better things, long lasting effects."
Oh,
I tell her, I was like, she'll be back. She'll be back one day, I know. But right now, she has found, because this is my ibuprofen. Like, even though I had a headache for 2 days, I was like, find an appointment with Kat. And I couldn't get one. And I texted her and she was like, I can see you on Wednesday. She was like, I'm technically taking care of myself, but as long as you don't mind waiting a couple extra minutes, I'm like, I don't care. You're taking
okay.
me in. Thank you, God. Please, I will make it work. And it worked out so well. So I opt for this rather than taking a medication to suppress the
Yeah.
symptom because I'm always thinking like, what can we do to support the body? And that's why we wanted to bring in Kat. So thank you, Kat. Thank you so much for being a part of this podcast.
It's such an honor and a pleasure. Thank you so much for having me, both of you, Gigi and Nishani.
Thank
Yeah, and maybe we will have a round two conversation and think
Mhm.
about what topics doesn't have to be anytime soon, but we'll think about what topics that may have not been addressed, some things that you can share with us that as you are learning more about women's health and fertility
Mhm.
issues, because that's a rising concern that I have
I
been
would love
noticing in a
more
lot
of a
of
deep
people.
dive into mental health and how acupuncture
Ooh,
can support and work synergistically with, mental health.
Sure, we
Perfect.
could definitely,
That
we should
that
definitely do
sounds
that. Yeah.
Yes, we absolutely can. I would love to get into that because I think that we didn't really touch on that, but I
Yeah.
absolutely do think that it can be beneficial. So, anyways, to our listeners, if you've made it this far, thank you for hanging out with us. We hope it made you feel a little bit more seen. We hope it brought new knowledge and information so that it can provide new pathways for health and wellness, because that's what we're here for. We're talking about integrated wellness modalities. And thank you again, Kat, for being a part of our podcast. This is, if I'm being honest, we're not promising perfection, but we're showing up as we are.
Until next time, stay real, stay honest.